the world was really simple. Nazis bad, allies good, you know, and the battles were so simple, but now he's in a world that is eminently more complex, and we can't pretend it isn't.
James, amazing job on this film. I felt like I was a kid again. I was transported in time.
That's how I felt making it.
Really?
Yeah.
It's incredible. Like, I've never felt like that in a movie in my adult life. I don't feel like I've felt like a kid watching this film. But you worked with Harrison Ford as a producer on Call of the Wild. Is that where you guys started talking about
We did a little. I mean, obviously, you can't be doing all-night shoots in the middle of the, Santa Clarita Valley, waiting for lighting setups to get completed and not start interviewing Harrison Ford with crazy Star Wars questions and Indy questions, and obviously somewhere around 2 a.m. he'd start telling stories about what they were thinking of next and what they were working on. Little did I know it would end up being me.
Like, for me, I think to make a great Indiana Jones movie, it needs action, adventure, history, mystery with a pinch of horror. And I think this captures...
You're missing comedy. Where's
comedy
the comedy
too,
in
comedy
that
as
list?
well.
Way up the list. I think but yes. Yeah, but I agree. It is a stew. It is a lot of things and a lot to manage, because comedy and thrills and heart and adventure and spectacle, all of these things work in harmony, but also can contradict each other. So it's a lot of orchestration.
Now, this felt like it captured the vein of what Steven Spielberg did with the original Indiana Jones. Can you talk about that, but also making it your own?
This is not a movie where I set out to kind of make it my own, in the sense that my first responsibility, and it was kind of the opportunity of this movie, Steven's been a hero of mine all my life. So in a sense, the make it your own happens naturally, if that's any way. Miles Davis can't play a trumpet the same way another person can, and even if they're playing the same melody, so that the reality is the me part was going to come out, but the part I was most interested in was the collaboration. And the idea, you're talking about a filmmaker who's been, in my mind, whispering in my ear since I started making movies 35 years ago, even as a Super 8 filmmaker as a teenager. So the idea of actually collaborating with him, of actually getting to spend time with him, developing the script, talking to him every week or two while I'm shooting, and having him in the cutting room, these were gigantic opportunities to actually not just meet your heroes, but collaborate with them.
That's incredible. That is so cool. With this being the final chapter of Indiana Jones' story, what was the most important part of the story to touch on and close the book on?
Well, to me, the idea had to be, what you always have to do in any movie, even if it's a sequel, is establish a problem and then solve it. Yeah. And I think it's the thing fans have the most struggle with sometimes, because they're like, why does my hero have to have a problem? And I'm like, because it's kind of the number one rule of drama. Like, if they don't have a problem, they're just a mannequin in an outfit plunging through one spectacle after another. But for me, the problem or challenge for Indiana Jones, given my actor was almost 80 and we were playing Indiana Jones in his 70s, was the idea of what is it to be a hero at sunset? How do you find a graceful way to live your life in that last chapter? And especially when you're living in a world where merchandising and commercialization and rock and roll and moon landings and realpolitik and nuclear threats have really eradicated the clear lines of the world we knew in the 30s and 40s when Indy's kind of glory period occurred. The world was really simple. Nazis bad, allies good, and the battles were so simple, but now he's in a world that is eminently more complex, and we can't pretend it isn't.
I love Phoebe's character in this.
Me too.
She is so much fun. Can you talk about what you wanted to do to separate her from other female characters that were in the Indiana Jones franchise, and her dynamic with Indy also? I
never really thought about separating her from the others. I actually thought about just being of that type, which Karen Allen being the archetype, was I mean, Karen's entrance into the movie is knocking Indy flat on the floor and rejecting him and out drinking him, and to me, the aspect, the brassy aspects I was really interested in. Phoebe will talk about it, but I had mentioned And when we were writing, I had this idea of Barbara Stanwyck in the classic Preston Sturges movie, The Lady Eve, who is both charming and you love her, but she's also a con woman, and she's taking Henry Fonda for a complete ride. But you know she has a heart, and of course she ends up falling in love with him. So it's this beautiful set of contradictions in the character, not unlike Indy's contradictions. Sure. And I both Harrison and I had been watching Fleabag at the time I was first coming on this movie, and there was no one on my mind more. And the idea that she would be an incredibly fresh choice, which always the female leads in the movie had been kind of someone new I hadn't really seen much before, I felt would be really exciting.
What inspired the decision to tap into Operation Paperclip with that piece of history to bring back the Nazis as antagonists?
It almost came from the mechanical challenge of how do I get Nazis in the United States, and under what auspices were they working there? Sure. And given that Indy's in his 70s and I knew we were playing the movie in the late 60s, it suddenly occurred to me, we had the moon landing and Wernher von Braun and all he contributed to American rocketry and NASA, and that gave me a little bit of a launching pad with Jez and John Henry Butterworth as we set out to write the script of how you could have a kind of Nazi genius in the United States helping us do what was going on at that time based on historical fact, but also perhaps having his own agenda.
James, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Glad
you
enjoyed it. Thank you.